In those years, Spanish football was like a giant stirring from its slumber. Following Real Madrid's golden age in the 50s, the language not registered for Generation S and language not registered for Generation S witnessed a transfer of power, the rise of strong personalities, and notably, the Euro language not registered for Generation Championship, the first major title asserting La Roja's position on the continental map. It was an era where the style of play was not merely tactical, it was a sublimation of individual artistry, knightly spirit, and courage. Stadiums like the Santiago Bernabéu or Camp Nou were not just venues. They were cathedrals witnessing fairy tales written in sweat and tears. But behind those glorious moments on the pitch, behind the halo of silver trophies, were human fates filled with joy, anger, love, and sorrow. More than half a century has passed, and time, like a harsh sculptor, has carved very different shapes into their lives. Some became powerful godfathers, some chose a life of seclusion, and some legends have laid to rest forever, leaving behind infinite regret. Today, let us sit back and listen to the tumultuous journeys of the language not registered for generation legends who formed the soul of Spanish football during those two volatile decades. Luis Suarez Miramontes. Position: playmaker. In the World Football Squad of the 60s, Luis Suarez Miramontes was not just a player, he was a master architect. He was the embodiment of elegance, intellect, and vision ahead of his time. In language not registered for generation, when he won the European Ballon d'Or, a title that, until the language not registered for generation since century, he remained the only Spanish male player to achieve. Suarez was at his physical peak at language not registered for generation. With a leisurely yet sharp style of play, his long passes, accurate to the millimeter, were likened to surgical knives slicing through opposing defenses. He was the soul of Barcelona before moving to Inter Milan to create the legendary Grande Inter era. Suarez's performance relied not on muscle power but on mindset, making football at his feet seem suddenly simple and poetic. Away from the limelight, Luis Suarez's life continued as an endless anthem of dedication to football. After hanging up his boots, he did not rest but embarked on a thorny coaching career. He led the Spain U language not registered for generation team to the European Championship in language not registered for generation and later helmed the national team at the language not registered for generation World Cup. In later years, Suarez became a senior advisor, a scout, and a technical secretary for Inter Milan. He lived a life of absolute respect in both Spain and Italy. He was often seen on football commentary programs, with his silver hair, bright eyes, and warm voice, analyzing matches with a sharpness that never faded with time. He was the beloved Luisito of the fans, a man who lived fully by the philosophy of beautiful football, avoiding noisy scandals and always maintaining the image of a refined gentleman. The connection between the man on the pitch and the man in real life was truly remarkable. However, the journey of that great architect had to come to a halt. On a summer day in July, language not registered for generation, Luis Suarez Miramontes took his last breath in Milan at the age of language not registered for generation. His passing was a major shock, marking the end of a romantic era. He departed, taking the unique Ballon d'Or of Spanish men's football at that time into eternity, leaving behind a colossal legacy of footballing intellect that future generations will forever look up to. Francisco Gento. Position: left winger. If one must find a name that defines the speed and glory of Real Madrid, it is Francisco Paco Gento, nicknamed La Galerna del Cantabrico, the Gale of the Cantabrian Sea. Gento was the terror of every right-back in Europe. In the 1960s, when generational teammates like Di Stefano or Puskás had aged or left, Gento at language not registered for generation still ran like a perpetual machine, becoming the leader guiding the young Yeye generation to their language not registered for generation the European Cup title in language not registered for generation. He was not just fast, but durable and resilient. He remains the only player in history to possess language not registered for generation European Cup/Champions League trophies, a record standing tall against time for over half a century. After retiring, Paco Gento's life was a model of humility and loyalty. He did not pursue a high-pressure top-flight coaching career, but chose to stick with Real Madrid in quieter roles. From coaching youth teams to serving as a club ambassador, Gento lived a simple life, avoiding camera flashes and lavish parties. He found joy with his family and old teammates. His career was as great as his daily life was simple. People rarely saw Gento make shocking statements or get involved in financial trouble. He was like a gentle grandfather, always smiling when looking at the younger generation. This contrast is fascinating. On the pitch, he was a fierce storm sweeping away all obstacles. But stepping outside the touchline, he was as calm as the sea after a storm, a solid spiritual support for the next generation. After Alfredo Di Stefano passed away, Gento took over the position of honorary president of Real Madrid, becoming a living symbol, a bridge between the heroic past and the brilliant present. However, the laws of life and death spare no one, not even legends. In January, language not registered for generation. The heart of the gale of the Cantabrian Sea stopped beating at the age of language not registered for generation. Paco Gento passed away amidst the mourning of the entire football world, carrying the record of language not registered for generation European championships like an eternal medal attached to his soul, leaving a vast void on the left flank of football history. José Ángel Iribar. Position, goalkeeper. José Ángel Iribar, or El Chopo, the Poplar, as affectionately called by fans, was the classic model of a legendary goalkeeper. With a tall stature, long reach, and strangely calm demeanor, Iribar was the most reliable stopper for Athletic Bilbao and the Spanish national team. In his 20s, he was already a Euro language not registered for generation champion. Not only standing out for his spectacular saves, Iribar was also respected for his absolute loyalty. He dedicated his entire language not registered for generation year professional career to a single shirt, Athletic Bilbao. He was a fortress, the pride of the Basque people during years full of political turmoil. After retiring in language not registered for generation, Iribar did not choose a leisurely life, but continued to contribute to football and society in a very unique way. He once participated in politics, becoming an important cultural icon in the movement affirming Basque identity. He also took on the role of goalkeeper coach and later head coach of Bilbao, then moved on to represent the club. Iribar's personal life was very private but full of depth. He was a man of profound thought, always concerned about culture and society. The calmness and steadiness in the goal seemed to have seeped into his character in real life. A man of few words, much action, steadfast and majestic like an ancient tree amidst the storm. He also went through the pain of losing loved ones, but always maintained admirable resilience. Today, at over language not registered for generation years old, José Ángel Iribar is still living a peaceful life and is considered a living saint in Bilbao. He still frequently appears at San Mamés, not to seek glory, but to pass the fire to young generations of goalkeepers. The image of El Chopo with white hair waving to the audience remains one of the most touching symbols of loyalty and pure love for football. Juan Manuel Asensi. Position, attacking midfielder. In the 1970s, when Barcelona was finding its footing again, Juan Manuel Asensi emerged as a brilliant conductor. He was the lungs and the brain of the Catalan team. With the captain's armband, Asensi led his teammates with a diligent playing style, technique, and the ability to score important goals from the second line. His peak was the language not registered for Generation Cup Winners' Cup victory in Basel, where he lifted the trophy as an affirmation of the return of the giant Barcelona. Asensi was not flashy, but he was the key to operating the gameplay, a silent hero but irreplaceable. After leaving Barcelona and a short time playing in Mexico, Asensi entered post-career life with many interesting turns. He tried his hand at coaching, opened a youth football training school bearing his name to nurture talent. Besides that, Asensi was also a successful businessman and a ranked paddle player. His life was quite private. He rarely appeared in tabloids, but focused on personal projects and family. The calmness and sharp tactical thinking on the pitch seemed to have helped him manage his life smoothly and steadily. Today, at the age of language not registered for generation, Juan Manuel Asensi is enjoying a fulfilling life. He is still the president of the Barcelona Players Association, regularly participating in charitable activities and connecting generations of players. He is a shining example of a smooth transition from the halo of the pitch to a happy and useful ordinary life. José Eulogio Garate. Position, striker. José Eulogio Garate, dubbed the engineer of goals, was a strange phenomenon of Spanish football. Born in Argentina but making his name at Atletico Madrid, Garate was a cold-blooded goal scorer but extremely polite. He won language not registered for generation consecutive Pichichi titles from language not registered for generation to language not registered for generation, not by physical bulldozing but by intelligent positioning and exquisite finishing. He was famous as the cleanest player, rarely fouling and never being sent off, a true gentleman in the penalty area. Garate's life, however, is a story full of regret about talent stolen by illness. While at the peak of his form, his career was forced to stop abruptly in language not registered for generation due to a rare fungus attacking his knee, a rare medical tragedy in sports. Forced to hang up his boots early at just over language not registered for generation, Garate did not collapse. Being a highly educated man, true to the nickname engineer, he shifted to working in industrial engineering and business, utilizing the industrial engineering degree he had quietly studied for while playing. He chose a life away from the noise of football, focusing on technical expertise and family. The calmness and intellect on the pitch helped him overcome the shock of early retirement to succeed in ordinary life. Currently, Jose Eulogio Garate is an old gentleman over language not registered for generation, living peacefully in Madrid. Although he rarely appears in the media, every time he returns to the Metropolitano Stadium, tens of thousands of spectators still stand up to applaud a legend of both talent and character. He is living proof that life continues beautifully even when the door to one's greatest passion slams shut, as long as one has knowledge and bravery. Amancio Amaro. Position, right winger. Amancio Amaro, or simply Amancio, was the symbol of flair and masterful individual technique. At Euro language not registered for generation and in the Real Madrid shirt of the 60s, Amancio was a wizard on the right flank. With magical dribbling abilities, he frequently tormented opposing defenders with unimaginable cutbacks. At language not registered for generation, he was the hero who scored in the Euro final, bringing the championship to Spain. Amancio was not just a player. He was the leader of the Yeye generation, young Spanish men bearing a modern, liberal style, inheriting the legacy of the great predecessors in Madrid. Leaving the pitch, Amancio's life was tied to training and management. He was the father of the famous Quinta del Buitre, Vulture's cohort generation of the language not registered. For Generation S, when he led the Real Madrid Castilla youth team to win the second division title, an unprecedented feat. Although his coaching career had its low notes when leading the first team, his influence on the mindset of youth football development is undeniable. In real life, Amancio was a decisive man, with a weighty voice, always maintaining the temperament of a resilient Galician. He also participated in the sportswear business with the Kelme brand, demonstrating acumen not only on the pitch, but also in the marketplace. After the passing of Paco Gento, Amancio was elected honorary president of Real Madrid, a worthy recognition for a lifetime of dedication. He was often seen in the VIP stands, watching every step of Vinicius or Rodrigo with the eyes of a proud father or grandfather. But then, the journey of the wizard also came to an end. In February, language not registered for generation, just over a year after his teammate Gento passed away, Amancio Amaro also took his last breath at the age of language not registered for generation. His departure left Real Madrid fans and Spanish football shocked, as if losing a spiritual anchor. He left, but the legacy of a seductive attacking style and the merit of cultivating young talents remains forever green. Queenie. Enrique Castro Gonzalez. Position, striker. Enrique Castro Gonzalez, or Queenie, was one of the greatest strikers Spanish football ever produced. Nicknamed El Brujo, the sorcerer, Queenie had the ability to turn the smallest chances into goals. He was a legend of Sporting Gijón before moving to Barcelona, winning language not registered for generation Pichichi top scorer titles. Queenie was not just a scoring machine, he was a symbol of humility and compassion, a man respected by all opponents. However, Queenie's life went through a horrific incident that few players have ever tasted. In language not registered for generation, while wearing the Barcelona shirt, he was kidnapped by criminals and held for language not registered for generation days and nights. All of Spain held its breath in prayer. When rescued, instead of hatred, Queenie refused to press charges against his kidnappers, believing they were merely people who had lost their way. That noble act carved a monument to his character. After retiring, Queenie returned to serve Sporting Gijón as a club representative. He lived a harmonious life, always smiling and ready to help everyone. He once fought and won against throat cancer, proving the spirit of an indomitable warrior. Yet, fate is ironic. That kind heart stopped beating too soon. In February, language not registered for generation, Queenie passed away suddenly after a heart attack right on the street near his home, at the age of language not registered for generation. The departure of El Brujo left infinite regret. Gijón's stadium was renamed El Molinón Enrique Castro Queenie to memorialize him. His legacy is not just goals, but a great lesson in forgiveness and love for humanity. Piri, Jose Martinez Sanchez. Position: central midfielder/defender. Piri was not the most technical player, but he was the bravest. During his years wearing the Real Madrid shirt, Piri was the embodiment of the Madridismo spirit. Never give up. The image of him playing with a broken arm and a sling across his chest in the language, not registered for Generation Cup Winners' Cup final, or taking the field with a high fever and a fractured jaw, became legend. Piri was a versatile warrior, able to play from attacking midfielder, defensive midfielder to sweeper, and everywhere he played, he burned with boundless energy. But the most interesting thing about Piri lies in his life after the pitch, a path completely different from most colleagues. Even while playing at the top level, he diligently studied to pursue medicine. After retiring, Piri did not become a coach immediately but became a real doctor. He joined Real Madrid's medical team, taking care of the health of the younger players. The transition from a warrior bleeding on the pitch to a doctor healing wounds is a powerfully inspiring story about intellect and effort. His family life was also very fulfilling alongside the famous actress Sonia Bruno, creating a golden couple of the entertainment sports world at that time. Piri is proof that football players not only know how to play ball, but can also succeed in fields requiring the highest intellect. Today, at the age of language not registered for generation following the passing of Amancio, Piri has been honored to become the current honorary president of Real Madrid. He still retains the agile demeanor and sharp eyes of a man who is both a warrior and an intellectual. His journey is the most vivid lesson about iron will and ceaseless learning for the younger generation. Karls Rexach, position, winger/midfielder. Karls Rexach, or Charlie, was a true artist of the pitch with talented feet but a personality full of improvisation. He was the symbol of Barcelona throughout the 70s, playing intimately alongside Johan Cruyff. Rexach possessed superb individual technique, crosses placed on a dime, and divine free kick ability. However, he was also famous for being lazy to run if he didn't feel like it, a typical eccentric genius. But it was precisely that improvisation that laid the foundation for the beautiful football philosophy that Barca pursued. Rexach's life after hanging up his boots was perhaps even more thrilling than when he was playing. He became the effective right hand of Johan Cruyff on the coaching bench, together creating the legendary dream team of the early 90s. But Rexach's greatest contribution to world football history lay in a paper napkin. It was he, with his sharp eye, who signed a preliminary contract with the boy Lionel Messi on a napkin at a restaurant, when the club's board was still hesitating. Without Rexach's bold decision and vision that day, modern football history might have turned in a different direction. In real life, Rexach still maintains the demeanor of a romantic playboy, humorous and somewhat carefree, always making frank and interesting statements. Currently, at the age of language not registered for generation, Karls Rexach is still a beloved figure at Barcelona. Although he no longer holds an official position, his voice still carries great weight. He spends time writing books, commentating on football, and enjoying old age with a leisurely, carefree demeanor, true to the Charlie of the old days. Miguel Reyna, position, goalkeeper. Miguel Reyna was one of the best goalkeepers in Spain in the 70s, having played for both Barcelona and Atletico Madrid. He was famous for lightning-fast reflexes and command of the penalty area. However, his career was also attached to one of the most tragic moments in European Cup history, in the language not registered for generation final between Atletico and Bayern Munich. When the home team was leading in the final seconds of extra time, Reyna was beaten by a long-range shot from Schwarzenbeck, forcing a replay and eventual defeat. That moment haunted him for many years, turning him from a hero into a man carrying the pain of unfinished business. But life always has fair compensation. After retiring, Miguel Reyna did not drown in the past but poured all his heart into raising his children, and heaven did not disappoint him, as his son, Pepe Reyna, became a world-class goalkeeper, winning the glories his father missed. World Cup, Euro champion. Miguel stepped back, becoming a solid rear guard, the first teacher, and also the strictest critic of his son. He participated in local politics for a short time, but mainly dedicated his life to nurturing his large family. Today, at the age of language not registered for generation, Miguel Reyna lives happily and proudly, seeing his legacy continued excellently through his son. His story is proof that failure on the pitch is not the end, but sometimes the beginning of another journey where glory is found in the smile of the next generation. Enrique Collar, position, left winger. Back in the early 60s, Enrique Collar was the name that made every defense tremble. As the legendary captain of Atletico Madrid, he was dubbed the left wing drill, or part of the infernal wing. Wind-tearing speed and absolute loyalty turned him into an immortal symbol of the red and white half of Madrid. He was a key factor, helping Atletico break the dominance of Real Madrid at that time, winning the European Cup Winners' Cup in language not registered for generation. Collar's life after football was a model of serenity and privacy. He did not seek fame or profit or try to cling to past glory. He chose the lifestyle of an elegant gentleman, preserving beautiful memories of a romantic football era. He is the honorary president of the Atletico Veterans Foundation, always silently supporting old teammates in difficulty. The connection between the role of the exemplary captain on the field and the respectable senior in real life is a wonderful consistency. Currently, at the age of language not registered for generation, Enrique Collar is one of the rare living witnesses remaining from the golden generation of the early 60s. Although his health has weakened over time, his spirit remains lucid. He is like a living history book, a treasure that Atletico Madrid fans always cherish and revere whenever mentioning the heroic days of yore. José María Baquero, position, attacking midfielder/striker. Finally on this list is José María Baquero, the youngest brother, the representative of the intersection between two eras. Although Baquero's peak belonged to the language not registered for Generation S, and language not registered for Generation S with the Dream Team, that he began to appear and make noise from language not registered for generation in the Real Sociedad shirt. He was the bridge, the important hyphen transferring from the physical, direct style of the language not registered for Generation S to the cunning and ball control of modern football. Baquero was not tall but extremely intelligent, with the ability to penetrate the penalty area and incredible heading skills. Baquero's career after retiring was very rich. He tried his hand at many coaching roles in Spain, Poland, and South America. He also assumed the role of technical director for Barcelona, continuing the work of nurturing young talent at the La Masia Academy. His life is dynamic, constantly moving, reflecting the enthusiastic personality unafraid of challenges on the pitch. He is a person always looking forward, updating the latest football trends but never forgetting the core values of team spirit. Currently, at the age of language not registered for generation, Baquero is still diligently working in the football world. He still plays the role of advisor, expert, and a dedicated teacher. Although no longer at the peak of form like the time he scored the decisive goal at Kaiserslautern, the fire of passion in him has never extinguished. Every step he takes now is not to seek goals for himself, but to lead the way for future stars.